The Flames knock 2 more RFA extensions off of their to-do list with the recent contract extensions of Adam Klapka and Yan Kuznetsov.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There is something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we are going to be talking about Adam Klapka and Yan Kuznetsov's one-year extensions and what their roles on the team might look like this year, considering the position the Flames are in roster space-wise, talent-wise, and we're going to wrap up the show with some more RFAs that still need an extension. They still need that contract here on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are here for you throughout the off season. We're here 3 times a week through the month of August, and thank you so much for hanging out, and I hope you are all enjoying your summer, and let's dive right into this. I had a prediction that the RFAs, excluding Dustin Wolf, would all be announced together. So yesterday, when I saw the Klapka extension first, I was like, okay, now where's the rest of them? And then the Kuznetsov one came in. I was like, okay, all right, I'm on the right track. And that was it. So both signed 1-year deals, and we're going to dive deeper into that in just a second here. But I truly thought that Ilya Solovyov and Jakob Pelletier would also be announced. But no, maybe things are looking a little different for them. So they don't want to group them all together, or maybe there's still some negotiating going on. Who knows? But we'll start with Kuznetsov's contract and move on to Klapka next. But Yan Kuznetsov, blue liner, he signed a 1-year, $775,000 contract. He played 1 NHL game last season, and that's that. I mean, the Flames are in a bit of a pickle in terms of a defenseman logjam, because obviously you have your Rasmus Anderson, you have your Mackenzie Weegar, you have the other guys that you've brought in, and there's really no space for these guys to make a consistent, permanent jump. So that's that. There's nothing the Flames can currently do. Well, there is, but they don't necessarily need to make room for any of these players, because truthfully, I don't think any of the current prospects or the defensive prospects are ready to make that full-time NHL jump, and that's something we'll continue to talk about this offseason. But Kuznetsov just has not shown me enough. I mean, it was 1 NHL game. There's only so much you can showcase, and I think he is not where you may want him to be in terms of seniority, I guess, in development wise. He did play 63 games with the Wranglers this season. I do truly think that he is one of the players impacted by the logjam. But he's one of the players that you want to see make that jump, because he has put in the work. He's shown success and forward motion, progress in his development. So you're hoping that you can graduate him to your NHL club. That ultimately, that's the goal with all of your prospects. 90% of your prospects, because some of them, they're not going to transition to the NHL. But he is one of the players, like I said, impacted by the logjam that really stinks. And this is a problem the Flames are going to run into a lot this season with more than just Kuznetsov. But I have a very hard time thinking we're on we're on different pages here, because the Flames have acquired 7 defensemen from December to the end of the season. So that's a lot. That's a whole nother defensive like set right there, and then some. And you already have players that can play what you have. And obviously a lot of those guys are prospects. They are still young, still sorting things out, but I don't think, if the Flames felt like he was ready to make that jump, it would just be a 1-year deal and they would not have acquired, say like a player like Jake Bean, for example. I don't think that would be the case. I think that they would maybe do, hey, let's do 2 years. First year's 2-way, next year's the 1-way, so you get a little more money. But this does very much feel like a prove it contract. However, I don't know how much room he's going to have to prove it. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I do think there's always room for, if the Flames want to make room for any of their prospects to make the jump forward or defenseman, we saw with goaltending as well, they'll do it. Like, that's not an issue. It's just a matter of, is that the right move? And right now, it does not feel like that. And there may be other players ahead of Kuznetsov who are closer to that step. And we're going to talk about Solovyov later, because he is one of those players, in my opinion. But coming up next, we are going to talk about Adam Klapka's contract. And I do just want to backtrack for a second here as well, because I blanked entirely. But my expectation for Kuznetsov is he's going to need to play more NHL minutes. Is that going to happen? We don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. However, I do think he really is an AHL defenseman at the moment, and maybe not a consistent in-betweener. That's just where I see things at this very moment. But coming up next, we are going to talk about Adam Klapka's contract and where he might fit in at the NHL level. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back after this. I love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports just aren't sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Check in to see who's looking like the Stanley Cup favorites. Are you going to be putting money on Edmonton? Or are you going to be putting money on a team like the Rangers? Head on over to FanDuel and let me know. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. This contract extension didn't really come to much of a surprise with Adam Klapka. I think that he is going to be a player that you do see more frequently in the NHL, or he's not going to make the full like NHL jump. I don't think that's necessarily in the cards for like prospect rankings, but or the pipeline, whatever you would like to call it. But I do think if we do see him, he's going to be up there for more than just like 2 or 3 games. He signed a 1-year, 2-way deal, same price. To me, Adam Klapka is an AHL, depth tweener. He's going to be in between. He is going to be a player that consistently bounces back and forth, I think, regardless of the organization he's in. And that's not a bad thing at all. All AHL teams need to field a roster, and Adam Klapka is a solid AHL player. He had 7 points in 5 games in the Calder Cup playoffs this past season. He had 2 goals, 5 assists. I mean, it's 7 goals, 7 points in 5 games. Sorry. It's impressive. I mean, a solid depth guy. He had 21 goals and 25 assists with the Wranglers this year. So he can put up points and he's there when you need him to be. But is this something that is going to translate to the same level of success at the NHL level? He did play 6 games with the Flames this year and scored his first NHL goal, which is always super exciting. He's like 6'8". He's a very big man. I before I knew anything about Adam Klapka, like what position he played, how, left-handed, right-handed, I just thought he was a defenseman. Because when you see something and it's like, yeah, this player's listed at 6'7", 6'8", I'm not thinking they're a forward. I don't think anyone jumps to that conclusion. I think you go to oh, yeah, that's definitely a defenseman. No. Not the case here. He is a forward and just a big guy. He played 6 games with the Flames, like I'd mentioned. I felt like it was a lot more than 6 games, so I was surprised to see that it was just 6. I thought it was going to be closer to like 12. But I think that goes to show you how long every game was last year and just how drawn out everything felt. But again, this is a player that is going to help field your AHL team. Good depth guy in the AHL, or not even depth necessarily. He can play up in the lineup because he's putting up a decent amount of points, and he definitely can use his size to his advantage as well. Help. The more space you take up, the less room the opponent has to try to snatch the puck. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think that you won't see him in the NHL this year. Anything is possible, as we've seen. But I do think that there are more players that are ahead of him in terms of committing to the NHL and really getting a true run at it. And that's fine. I mean, I don't think he's going to be one of the first players to get the call. If Matt Coronado doesn't make the roster out of camp, I think it's him. Same thing with Pelletier. I think that Cole Schwindt, who also still needs a contract. There's players that they're looking to graduate before Klapka, and probably more than just them. And that's not a knock to Klapka by any means. I just think that the Flames are not necessarily actively pursuing him as a full-time NHLer, in my opinion. But no, he tear it up in the AHL. He does a good job, so I will give him that. I don't have an issue with Klapka. I think that he brings a solid work ethic to the team. He takes advantage of his size as well. Like, the Flames lost, obviously, Zadorov, who played a different position, but guys still fear players of that stature. You don't come across a guy that's 7 feet on skates too often. And if you see someone, and you're a good, almost foot shorter than that, you're probably gonna be a little more cautious. At least that's in my brain, that's the rationale. But you are missing this size throughout your lineup. Like you look at um players like Sharon Govich, not necessarily a big dude. You look at Matt Coronado, not very bulky. Jakob Pelletier, who is just not very bulky either, very skinny. Martin Pospisil has been in the gym doing some rigorous training program with Hanzik. And I'm sure Connor Zary, he's tiny too. Like there aren't these players where it's like, these are the big bad Flames. They are a very young group of players. And then you have like Rasmus Anderson, who was on like the opposite end of the spectrum. He came into the NHL, or not even the NHL, the AHL, just overweight and like out of shape. So he had to lose the weight and turn it into muscle rather than just like bulk up. So, I'm confident that whoever the Flames decide to put out there this season, they know what they're doing. There is an actual strategy, which has been so nice in comparison to years past, where it's like, yeah, we'll figure out what we're gonna do at the deadline. And I think if there was a different general manager in position, there would not have been as many trades as there were, and Elias Lindholm probably would have walked for nothing. Possibly even Chris Tanev. Because I just did not see that general manager taking an aggressive approach. And well, there's a whole different approach going on in Toronto right now, and it's interesting. Very interesting. But tune into Locked On Maple Leafs to hear more about the Toronto Maple Leafs endeavors and current situation regarding stripping John Tavares of the captaincy and handing it over to Austin Matthews. But coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with some more contract extensions or predictions, and Cole Schwindt still needing a contract, as well as Solo and Jakob Pelletier. And we will be right back after this. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. I hope you're having a great summer, and just thank you so much for making the show part of your off season. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. This is, again, like standard procedure. Every player gets an entry-level contract, and then you reach RFA status. And then you get another contract, and then you reach RFA status again. Most times, unless, like, yeah, no. But Cole Schwindt was extended a qualifying offer. Jakob Pelletier was extended that qualifying offer. Solovyov was every RFA except Dylan Dubé was extended a qualifying offer, which means they're still like a restricted free agent. And if you're not tendered a QO, you go to unrestricted free agency. Cole Schwindt was a player the Flames acquired in the Matthew Tkachuk, Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar trade. And he's solid. I like him. I think that he is someone that, again, he was rather young when he was traded. So, I mean, he's had 2.5, 3 years to develop in the Flames organization. Wow, it's been a long time. So, two seasons. And that's exciting because, this team needs to get younger. This team needs to get better at some point. And what it's going to take to get there, different story. But I do see Cole Schwindt being part of that. I think that he is a solid AHL player, and his talent transitions well to the NHL level. Do I see him being a top 6 player? Not with the Flames. I mean, I feel like a bulk of the Flames 6, 7 past draft classes have been like middle 6 forwards. You have not like found that guy. That's fine. Not really, but it's again, it's what's led the Flames to this transitional period to get younger and get better. So, shout out to the scouting department, I guess. But I do think Cole Schwindt will see some time in the NHL. How much of it? That's entirely up to everyone else's health. But where's that extension? Where is it? Jakob Pelletier is another player that you want to make this roster out of camp so bad. Jakob Pelletier was supposed to crack the NHL roster last season, but he got injured and he got boarded by a Seattle Kraken player in the last preseason game of the preseason and missed up until March, February, March, when the Flames headed to the East Coast. So he didn't see much playing time in the NHL. He had a decent postseason with the Wranglers, but he did not look confident, comfortable, ready to play at the NHL level when he came back, and I do not blame him. He missed a significant amount of time, and then like 3 games in, he gets absolutely body slammed to the ice by Jacob Trouba, and injures that same or potentially re-aggravates that same shoulder. Doesn't miss any time, but he just was not there wasn't a lot of confidence there. So they sent him down to the AHL, and so be it. Like at that point there's nothing you can really do. He needed to play consistent minutes. Same thing like we saw with Matt Coronado this year. Sometimes you just have to do the quote unquote like unpopular thing to accomplish what you want to accomplish. But Pelletier is he has 10 points in his 37 career NHL games. That doesn't look great. Obviously, like you're less than a half a point per game player. But if you remember his first season in the NHL, really, he was like benched a lot because Daryl Sutter was coaching, and Daryl Sutter would not let these children make a mistake. I still remember I went to the LA Kings game out in LA, and Pelletier made a turnover, and you would have thought he committed like one of the 7 deadly sins or something. Like it was the end of the world. And it stinks because he's fun, he's fast, he has talent. It's just a matter of breaking some bad habits to succeed at the NHL level. And that is something that is so important, and you're going to see along the way with any of these players, because it is called development and developing for a reason. You aren't just like thrusted into the professional hockey world with every skill set that you need. Like you have to build them. You have a foundation. Now it's time to build off of them. Like that's as simple as it can really be put. But you see it all the time with players, whether it be their work ethic, whether it be their play on the ice, whether it's the skating and the puck handling, simple mistakes, like turnovers, pass completion, or nutritional stuff where you act in training. Like it's all part of the bigger picture and it doesn't just like come together overnight. So hopefully this next contract, I think it's going to be a similar 1 to 2 year thing to be another, like, prove it situation. But I do have more faith in Pelletier than I do for the other players we've talked about so far. And to wrap up the show, Ilya Solovyov just welcomed a child. Congratulations. He has been in Calgary pretty much for the entire offseason, really. But he's another player that has just kind of been disrespected by the logjam at the blue line. And that's to no fault of his own. He's a good defenseman, you know. I think that he does need to get more acclimated. He played 10 games. 10 NHL games, and he made mistakes along the way. He played like the natural course played out. And it's a matter of him seeing more of that time and more, you know, situations and scenarios where he can break those bad habits and try to refine those skills. And I think that you'll see him throughout the season. I think him, and if he's healthy, Jeremy Poirier will see time at the NHL level. To me, Poirier is the next one to like truly make this transition. But again, anything can happen. We've seen it with Pospisil and Zari this past year. Sometimes it's the players you least expect and that you don't have pegged as the necessary next guy. And that, again, that's the beauty of hockey. Sometimes there's just a dark horse that shows itself. But that will do it for me today on Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for making the show part of your day and listening to us wherever you get your podcasts. And we are on YouTube as well. Make sure you're subscribed. We are 2 months away from the home opener, and I'm so excited to be out there. And if you happen to be hanging out at the Saddle Dome and you want to hang out, meet up, that sounds great. Show me where the best concession stand is. But that will do it for me today on Locked On Flames. I hope you all have a fantastic evening, and subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And you can follow me on Twitter at JustBelmosto. Until tomorrow, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay hydrated, stay cool, and be kind.